You're on mute.
That is so much for my brilliant intro. Welcome, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Jacqueline Schumann. I am here with my wonderful co-host, Jennifer Bouani, and the soon-to-be Mark Pellegrino, who is stuck in a traffic jam, typical Los Angeles. So today welcome to TV Talk, sponsored by the Ayn Rand Center UK. And today we're going to be talking about the TV show Severance, which is it's a show that was streaming on Apple TV. It stars Adam Scott, Zach Sherry, Britt Lower, Tremel Tillman, Jen Tulloch, Dyken Lachman, the amazing John Turturro and Christopher Walken, and also amazing Patricia Arquette as well. It is a very interesting TV show put together, believe it or not, directed by Ben Stiller and produced by Ben Stiller. So a very serious type of show, I would say, for Ben Stiller. So the show is about it's a science fiction sort of psychological thriller where there is a biotech corporation called Lumen Industries, and it uses this kind of mind wipe medical procedure that severs allows you to sever your memories from your day job, and when you leave your work at night and go home, you don't remember what you did during the day. You don't know who you were really, or what they call them innies, the people during that work during the daytime. The procedure is called severance. It actually separates the consciousness of employees. What happens is they eventually split from their day life and their night life, which proves to be very controversial out in the world. And there are various reasons why people choose to sever. It's a voluntary procedure, so it's not being forced on anybody yet, as far as we know. But one severed employee, Mark, when a new coworker joins him, begins to uncover this conspiracy of Lumen when one of the ex-employees approaches Mark and claims that he's been unsevered and that Lumen is doing terrible things. It's a really interesting, thought-provoking, binge-worthy show as far as I was concerned. Jennifer, what did you think of it?
Wow. So this one was a show that we heard about originally, I believe, from Tully. Didn't he say he loved this show?
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the first time I'd heard of it. So it's been on my list for a while. And this is another one of those shows that starts off and it's just weird. You're like, where are they going with this? This is so strange. And but when you go through the entire season and you look back on it, it has so many layers to it. There's these themes about free will and the exploration of who you really are if you're split. Like if you can't remember, if you're an outie and you can't remember your innie self, or your innie self and you can't remember your outie self, and who's making the choices, because if they want to get out, they can only get out. Only their outie can make that choice. But if their innie wants to get out, there's a lot of nuances there that are interesting. Another layer to it is this corporate America dystopia, which I think was very exaggerated, but yet done in a very artistic way. The fact that there's a cube farm, but there's just 4 in the middle of this very cold room. It's not realistic. It's almost purposely over the top, not realistic. The fact that they're doing what seems like meaningless work and they don't really know like the numbers, and there's like a lot of mystery behind that, chock full of mystery, what they're doing, what the company's doing, and then trying to figure out what their outies are doing or are into. Then there's this whole layer of occult, which is Like the leaders of the company seem to be following a cult, which I don't know. I actually turned out really loving it. But in the beginning, I was like, what in the world? What in the world? But that seems to be the case with a lot of the shows we pick out.
It has to kind of grow on you. So how long did it take you for it to grow on you to the point where you were like, oh, I'm so into this now?
I don't think I was ever like, it wasn't binge. I know Mark was texting this week going, he was binging on it. It was never that for me. But it was just a step when it was over. And also there's, as usual, spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to know some spoilers, you probably don't want to watch this yet. You want to hold off. We're recording. But the ending with the cliffhanger, oh my God, I could just strangle Ben Stiller for that cliffhanger. He should have given us some more answers than he did.
And it makes it even worse that the WGA strike happened, and then the SAG-AFTRA strike, because they were actually filming season 2, was beginning to film season 2 just as the strike happened, and everybody had to walk off. So it's not going to be until 2025 that we probably see season. Yeah, I was reading about that. And I hope it's sooner, but I mean, we don't know how long the strike is going to go on for anyhow. So, but it was pretty binge worthy for me. After the, I had done a little bit of reading up on it. I purposely avoided the spoilers, but I understood why Talia Rucka really liked it, because it's got some really interesting objectivist themes about integration, I think. I don't think that they're those themes on purpose, but integration and free will, dichotomy, dealing with grief, evasion, right?
Evading of your emotions, yeah.
Evasion of reality. It's just got all of these great and wonderful themes. And then I think the thing that's hilarious is the guy that plays Mark's brother-in-law. So Mark's sister's husband is just this like earthy hippie, self-help, guru
Author
type person, and he writes a book. And he's supposed to be kind of ridiculous, like Mark's outie in his. So the Mark that knows the brother-in-law in the outside world thinks of him as sort of ridiculous, and doesn't really take him very seriously, and just like, oh yeah, that like self-help mumbo jumbo, blah blah blah. Gets hold of a book that Mark's innie, so his day job version of himself, gets hold of a book that the brother-in-law has written, and it turns out to be basically like his salvation, or the thing that he uses to guide him, and it changes his life. But there were so many things about this show to love. I thought it was shot really, really well. After our recent foray into just filming a short film, the color schemes were particularly interesting to me. The way that it was lit during the daytime, or they're at the office, versus like the office was blues and cold,
fluorescent lights,
cold and fluorescents. But then it was the Audis almost had kind of like this Fargo feel to it, like cold. It was like, they're in like, are they like in Minnesota or some place that's like cold all the time, Michigan or something.
And a lot of dark night shots too, I guess, because it's night usually when they were their outie.
Right. Or even on the weekends, you didn't see like big sunny shots. It was just kind of darks and earth tones and browns and stuff. So
and along the lines of the choices of difference, I thought what's her name, Helly? Her situation was so intriguing to me, because she is, and especially when you see the end and she knows when you find out who she is.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But she chooses to go through this procedure, and the minute she wakes up as an innie, she's not into this. She's like
Right.
freaked out. She would be like any normal person, like, what am I doing here? I want out, I want to quit. And every time she tries to quit, she ends up like getting rejected from her quitting, and then she tries to escape, and she gets put through like what is it, wellness seminars, or I don't remember what it was called, where they have to go get retrained and rebrainwashed.
Oh, to the break room. They go to the, right, when they go to the break room to get punished, basically, where they have to sit there and just recite over and over this, like, almost, it's like it would be like the John Galt speech in reverse, right? Like, I'm so sorry for everything I've done. I'll be a better person. I'll help other people.
Ever and ever until they finally believe what they're saying. And she, like, but the one escape she could, the one thing that would get her to escape would be if her outie agreed for her to quit. And
she never does.
And
right?
she what?
She never does. She tries to send messages to her. She even, again, spoiler alert, she even attempts to hang herself, so that her outie would see the damage done to her. And every single time she gets pushed back. So it's a big mystery on why the hell that happened, right? Why she's so determined to keep her there.
Speaking of mysteries, what do you think the numbers and what they're doing for their actual work means?
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Thanks again, Ben Stiller, for that. Is it something nefarious? Because there's something meaningful to it. It's right. They should scare. They say that the numbers should make you feel scared.
Yeah.
And you have to box the numbers up and put them in, and then they're asking, well, are we murdering people? Are we killing the goats? And that was the other thing too, is when they stumble upon the goats. Yeah, sometimes the show feels like somebody's acid trip.
Yes.
And you're like, what the hell does this mean?
But by the end, and this is why I appreciated it by the end, because I'm on this acid trip the whole time going, what the heck has Jackson Tully drugged me into? But then they start to pay things off. So you realize that every single thing in there has a purpose, and they're you begin to trust them that they're going to pay it off. And that's what hooks me. I'm like, oh, this is just a really cool mystery. Right. So that's awesome.
And in the meantime, it's still really entertaining to watch the dynamic of the coworkers.
Yes.
I think John Turturro, he is just such a brilliant actor. He does I will watch him in anything that he's in. We
saw him in The Night Of.
Night Of. He was brilliant in that again. And Christopher Walken was just hilarious in it.
Yeah.
I thought that Patricia Arquette also had an amazing performance, because I did not even recognize her, just because that character is just so not like anything she's played before. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was great, but it has like The Office kind of feeling about it in a way, sort of the like the mockumentary, just the chemistry,
making fun of office parties, and like how everybody gets excited about the little party,
the melon parties.
But then they had the ultra waffle party that Dylan got to go on, which was not like any kind of office party that would ever pass in today's litigious society.
No, that was so strange. And I really wondered, was it going to end up, I'm curious how many of our viewers right now have seen the show. and what their thoughts on it. We do for Apollo Zeus for £2 for they just in support. And then okay, here's an interesting question from Apollo that we can answer. We can diverge for a minute. He's asking for £5. How does script writing differ from short story or novel writing? Well, it differs a lot. It differs a lot in the format. Generally,
almost every aspect, it's different.
Yeah. The only thing that's the same really is the dialogue, I would say. But even then, in short story and novel writing, you can get away with a lot more in dialogue. You can get away with much longer speeches and sort of more I don't know, different ways of speaking that you can't really get away with in spoken dialogue. But there are lots of difference in script writing. Everything must be told in the present tense, and you can't go into a person's point of view. You can't narrate like internally.
In script writing, you're writing for a production team. You know, that's not the final audience. You're writing so a production team can all organize around. And so actors are going to take it and make it their own. Directors are going to take it and make it their own. So you really are just sticking to what is the core part of the story that you must tell in order to keep that all intact and make it entertaining. Yeah. And it's all very present tense, but yeah. So.
Yeah. And as the novel or short story writer, you get to be everything. You're the actor, director, producer. You get to control everything. As the screenwriter, you don't really get to control how the director directs or the actor acts. So it's
the editor edits.
Or the editor edits. Yeah,
which is
definitely a big
Look
difference.
who's joining us, Jax.
Oh, look at that. We've managed to
Hello.
Without him for all this time. We're doing without you, Mark.
I knew you guys could. Jeff Goldblum did a play called Speed the Plow by David Mamet with Kevin Spacey. And one day Kevin Spacey was late to the theater, so the understudy did the entire first section of the play, and then finally he showed up and did the second part of the play. Which I would be screwy for me as an audience member, but everybody loved it. The Old Vic, they applauded him when they saw him come to the door. How's it going? What's the conversation like? I want to get in on this.
We just got off on a sidetrack, but now we're getting back to now because we had an interesting super chat question, but now we're getting back to the point of the story. So we're talking about Severance, as you know, and Jennifer and I have already given our opinions on it. But what did
you say?
We said it was horrible. It was like the worst 9 hours of our lives. We couldn't just. It was
that must be why Adam Scott is getting nominated for an Emmy.
Is he for this?
Yes. Here's a piece of trivia. I did a movie called Ronnie, or The Killer Next Door, with Adam Scott, and we bonded about acting in very similar ways. I loved his work then. This was before he was anyone. But this is a star-making piece. Not that he isn't great in Big Little Lies and Parks and Recreation. He's always super cool, super dry, funny, very real. But this, he gets the chance to showcase lots of his dramatic range, which is great.
What stood out to you about his acting in this that caught your attention?
As an actor, what I loved about him was his subtlety. There was never a moment that was reached for. He just let things happen. So when you see an actor that is simple, they just are. We call it, they're just being up there, and they respond to things in an intelligent and insightful, intuitive way. He has a combination of those. He actually made me a number of times. I couldn't pinpoint the moments right now, but a number of times I watched what he did and thought to myself, as an actor, would I have thought of that? Would that have occurred to me to do that moment that way? Just like Gene Hackman, who was originally offered One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, thought when he saw Jack Nicholson, he just said, I don't think I would have had those ideas. And it would have been an entirely different part with a guy like Gene Hackman, as brilliant as he is. So it's really cool to watch Adam bring this part out, right? To take this story, which is such an interesting story. I think I texted you guys. It's sort of a combination of Black Mirror meets Sartre's No Exit meets Office Space, right? Because there are funny little dry bits of humor in there that the character Julian, I think, supplies a lot of the comic relief, but and serious stuff even with between John Turturro and Walken that it still comes off as poignant and funny in its own way. So what was your guys' overall assessment? What did I miss in the conversation? I hate to review things, for people who've already seen it, the conversation.
Love the exploration of this like splitting of self and the choices that you make from the innies and the outies and their conflicting choices. Talked about that a little bit. I'd love to know what you think about that. We also talked about like all the mysteries in it, from the numbers, the cult, what is the company doing? Yes, we mentioned, like you were talking about Office Space, kind of the funny moments, like we're having an office party, exciting. Everybody gets excited because that's all there is to live for in there. What else did we talk about, Jax?
I loved how it was shot. I loved the color schemes and the cameras. I thought that I loved all of the dialogue was fantastic. The acting was brilliant. I thought there's two things, but I wanted the one thing that I agree completely with Mark about this great actor, Adam Scott. I watched it again. So I had seen it several months ago. I saw it, I think, when it came out. And when we decided to do this on TV Talk, I watched it again and binged it again, of course. And I love watching things for a second time because you get to see all the stuff that you missed. And this scene when Helly tries to hang herself and Mark saves her, and he is all just flustered about it, and what's the security guy puts him in the elevator and says, just go home. And you see Mark in the elevator just with this angst of, oh my God, is she okay? Is she okay? Because then nobody knows if she's okay. And then you just see that all get erased from his face as the severance takes effect. And it's just, I watched it, I rewinded it, and I watched it probably like 4 or 5 different times. It was so subtle. There was no overacting of it. It was just the wrinkles left his face.
And his sister is brilliant as well in the same way. She's absolutely brilliant in the part. A totally understated performance that's very deep. The relationship is very strong between the two of them, very readable based on the stuff that she does, very lifelike, very, very natural without being natural. Lots of actors today act naturally, but there's no acting between those two. I really get the sense that their relationship is an old bond, and that they've grown old together from childhood. It's really great. Yeah.
And I thought that just the themes, I think, are really important to objectivism.
Like what?
Like integration and disintegration, dichotomies, evasion of reality, free will. And it brings up a lot of interesting questions. And in the ones, what I love about Adam Scott's character is when you understand what his trauma was, right? You understand that how he could do something like that, how he could choose to sever his consciousness so that to deal with the grief. But I think that the lessons, the morality lessons show through that it doesn't, even if you completely sever your consciousness and don't deal with the grief, don't deal with reality, it's still going to get you. It's still going to kind of infiltrate its way through you. And that's how Mark actually is able to kind of go on this, I think it's how he's able to go on this crusade to discover what the truth of things are. If there weren't part of that grief in him that was still carrying through to his quote unquote day job life.
It's certainly a cool way to structure a mystery, right? I think lots of good most good narratives have mystery elements to them, and this one is revealing the mysteries in a really cool way. But the idea that part of the mystery is discovering themselves and integrating the Innie and the Outie people together, and the surprises that they're finding outside, and the love triangles that are being set up, and the like between Helly and Mark, and Helly and now the wife that he discovers is now not dead, but
right,
which sets up an interesting narrative. You want to ask why. I mean, one of the first questions I asked as I was seeing the movie is, why in the hell would somebody do this? Which is what they answer immediately with his character, and he's the one you primarily follow. And it's his grief that keeps him. He wants the 8 or 9 hours of peace from the grief that he's experiencing at night and drowning out with alcohol and can't seem to do. And the only other person they've really focused on with respect to motive is Helly. Once you start getting into her perspective, it's a great twist, a great turnaround to find out who she really is, that she's actually part of this bizarre religious dynasty.
Yeah, she's the daughter of the monster, right?
That has this mysterious corporate setup whose intentions aren't to produce anything per se, but to control people, and that's pretty interesting. And she's sabotaging it just at the moment that Julian, or whatever his name is going to lose control of them and snap them back to their Outie selves. And it's going to be interesting to see how all of those stories that have been started, Totoro going back to see Walken, who he's in love with, and seeing his life, and the implication
with presumably his husband, right?
With his husband, but then the implication that is he in one of these saboteurs inside, because he had maps of people's homes. He seemed to be surveilling this company. Interesting that
character, you mean, right?
Yeah, his Outie character seems to be one of these potential rebels who's trying to head off the Eaton family. But inside, I would consider him a fanatic, right? A religious fanatic who quotes line and verse from the biblical chapter. He's one of their lieutenants. He could easily be one of their lieutenants. And his character is very interesting, and her character is going to be very interesting. There's all these threads that they've left hanging for season 2 that I'm dying to know where they're going to lead. How is she going to negotiate the Eaton family, who are clearly ruthless, religious fanatics in their own right? What's going to happen with Patricia Arquette's character? What is her relationship to everybody in this? Because when Adam Scott was confessing to her as his Outie self that he wanted to make a change, she seemed very sympathetic to that, until she discovered that he'd been hacked, that the protocol had been worked on him somehow. And then she started working for the Eaton forces again. I want to know what's up with her character. How is she involved in this Eaton family of religious fanatics? And so it really, it's an interesting mystery story about just self-discovery. It's a strange critique on corporate life and the drudgery and sort of emptiness of corporate life for many people. Frankie was doing the splits because he's by accident. It calls up very interesting concepts about what is identity, who are you, and are these separate
people? Is you, right? That was the other thing
that
I thought was so it was such a great touch, is the book that Mark's brother-in-law writes, who during his Outie doesn't really like his brother-in-law, or thinks of him more as a joke. And the book that he writes, the self-help, hippie book that he writes for him, he never sees it in the Outie, but he finds it as an Innie, and it ends up being like a salvation for him. It becomes
relatable. It's relatable, even though it's so damn infantile. And maybe that's it, because he's only 2 years old. When you really think about it, he's been doing it for 2 years. He's very young. And so something, that kind of philosophy, such as it is, might appeal to him. Yeah, it's a great mystery story. I'm really happy that I got a chance to see it, and I'm bummed that the writer's strike will probably keep us from seeing a season 2 for a long time.
Yeah, that's the definitely the tragedy about it. One of the other things that I thought was really interesting was that they're choosing to go back to work every day. They're not being forced to do it, right? They'll you can call in sick, and if you decide to quit, you can just you can officially resign, or you can just never go back. And yet every day they're choosing to go back. And I think John Turturro's character is interesting because you get sort of a hint of, tell me if you guys thought the same. My take on it was his reasons for going in. At least in the beginning, it looked like he fought in wars. So he was in the military, and
I thought that was his dad.
Well, I thought it was him, and I thought that could be a reason why he chose to go in. But maybe
he's spying, isn't he? He was thinking he was going to spy, but then he got converted inside.
Well, you have to be converted inside because you have no consciousness of your outside. But I don't know. Yeah, that was a little confusing to me. I wasn't sure if the medals were his. You're right. He could be trying to escape some form of PTSD. He's a Navy guy, or is that his dad's strongbox? I don't know. But it's the stuff underneath the Navy paraphernalia that was interesting to me, because it suggested that he's on some kind of recon mission.
Yeah.
Right. Since he was mapping out some of the characters who we've already seen. And that's what enables him to go connect with
I get the impression that Lumen is doing an experiment on them. Like they're almost test subjects. And
and
he's going in to try to, reveal that like a spy. But his innie doesn't know that.
I think that's part of the mystery, is that some of the innies never become outies, like Dyken Lackman's character. So Mark's actual wife, the therapist. She goes down, she's not even awake. She's only awake for the time that she's being the therapist. And then she goes back down to the test room because she's supposed to be dead, which of course is like, did they murder her? Did they straight up fake her murder?
Or did they kick her out? Just an outie in the outie world now.
Yes, the strange connections between everybody. I mean, everybody is somehow connected in a way that you wouldn't expect, which is, it doesn't come off as contrived because it's so strangely coincidental.
It was a wonderful reveal when you find out that that's his wife.
Yeah,
that was.
I was almost thinking Helly was.
That's what I thought. I thought Helly was going to be his wife, but that's too easy.
Yeah,
that's too easy. It's so much better to make it this woman, because that creates another mystery. Like, oh my God, how did that happen? How did they pull this off, that she was dead in his eyes, and then draw him into this vortex, and then to find out that Helly's actually part of the problem. Now that's going to be something that she's going to have to deal with, because she's been the most intense rebel of the group.
Yeah.
I mean, she's threatened to maim herself, and she tried to kill herself just to spite the person on the outside.
Yeah, it was so fascinating. I was really impressed. As far as I know, this is not an adaptation of anything that already existed. And I'm always just super impressed when you come up with something, an idea this good, and execute on it so well. And I mean, major kudos to Ben Stiller for I don't know how he came up with it. I was telling Jeff here sometimes
he didn't create it.
Oh, he didn't create it? Oh, he directs it?
Dan Erickson was the creator. Yeah, we should give credit.
Created by Dan Erickson.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that should show all the writers out there worried about ChatGPT that there is no way in hell that AI could come up with a story this interesting, this nuanced, this that works on multiple levels.
Yes.
it's ChatGPT just doesn't have it in it. I don't think it will ever have it in it
I don't
to
either.
write. Many
Yeah.
of the streaming shows out there are so unconventional that there's no possible way an AI that's just filled with what's known, even not even that, but just cliche storylines. There's no way that it could break that.
I'm liking Dan Erickson's story. I'm just reading up. It looks like he's kind of in the same boat that the guy that did what was it? True Detective. So he
wrote a book.
He was, let's see, he was a blah 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 blah. He's written for, so I don't think that he wrote a book. Just in that this was like it seems to be the first project that he did, the first real TV show project that he did. He's written for like Lip Sync Battle and like a few other things, but he brought the script to Ben Stiller's production company. And then then Stiller decided to produce it from there. But he's like first time showrunner, which is always interesting. I mean, really, like this guy should get an Emmy for the writing of this. Also, I will say that I don't know of any other show that has the most interesting and the most appropriate beginning credits than this show. The beginning credits for this show are amazing. They were like, I mean, and I usually always skip over the beginning credits, but just the imagery was so great.
Animation of the dots. No, I'm thinking of a different one.
Very Salvador Dali-esque, but very surrealist. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like opening credits have been sort of going that way for a while, though. They tell a great story. They tell the story.
Well, yeah, but they're not all fantastic. I thought that that like I remember True Blood's opening credits were pretty cool. But there hasn't been a show, I think, that we've talked about on TV Talk that I've been so excited about the opening credits for as this one. But yeah, so but such a wonderful, fantastic show. I can't wait to see where it goes. I really want the strike to be over. So people can, I'm terrified of what's going to happen to TV in 2024.
Yes, well, hopefully they'll resolve the strike and we'll be working again. Well, so I'm sorry I missed so much of the show, guys. I got caught in traffic after jiu-jitsu and I left early as well to get home on time, and it didn't happen. But this is a thumbs up for me. I don't know that we dealt in detail with all the thematic elements of it, but check it out for sure. It's a great mystery, done very creatively, and it does definitely pose some interesting questions for objectivists with respect to disintegration and integration, which are two very, very important ideas for objectivists. So check it out and definitely tell us what you think. Any final comments, Jax? Or
yeah, Jennifer's internet just crashed, so she may be. I don't know if she's out for good. You do have a super chat question for you, Mark, from Apollo, and it is for £2. Thank you, Apollo. Stage versus film acting, Mark. The question. I guess he wants to know the difference in stage versus film acting, or
the difference.
He just says stage versus film acting, Mark question mark. So I'm making up the rest of the context.
They're both awesome mediums, very different. Require the same things from you, just in different magnitudes. And film is great because there's things that you don't have to do that you'd have to do for the theater, like speak up really loud when you're in intimate moments. You could have internal moments that the camera can capture without doing a lot, which is beautiful. And theater, of course, has the beauty of the live performance, the thing that's captured in the moment that can never happen again, right? But there are technical issues with each that are that conspire against the actor. You know, the public watching you is a force that conspires against the actor. Some of the technical things you have to do, you know, on stage can also conspire against real experience, but all you have to do is do it a lot so that, you know, you're no longer thinking about those technical aspects. And with film, of course, the camera in your face is very distracting. And some of the things they have to do for these TV shows are very cinematic in nature, and that's not always done on a long lens far away. Some of it's done really close, and to maintain your focus and concentration and know exactly what you're doing in the face of that distraction is a challenging thing for anybody. But they're both great mediums. They present different challenges. Of course, with film, you could do it again, and you can explore a lot in film until you get it right, and you can capture what is essentially right, as opposed to, you know, working on it on stage and sometimes getting it right, sometimes getting it wrong, and
having a good show or not a good show, right?
Yeah.
Having a good rendition. Yeah. I think also, at least it would seem to me, from an acting perspective, it's a lot different if you're moving from a film actor to stage actor or vice versa. But with film, you're not shooting everything in the sequence that it was written, right? You're not shooting every like act one, scene one, now we're going to do scene two. Whereas on stage, you're acting it, right?
Yeah, one of the great things about working on stage is you have the continuity. You have the continuity of the piece that can feed you and get you engaged in the problem. And the problem with film is that it's staccato. You're out of order, and it's bursts of acting. You're not constantly in it, so it takes a different kind of focus to stay in something for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours at a time, as opposed to the theater. Yeah, so they all present different challenges and are really great mediums if you do them well. But like gi and no gi jiu-jitsu, I feel like you can go from theater to film and be a better actor. Some of the greatest actors that I know go from theater to film, right? They have long theater careers, whether it's regional theater or even Broadway, and then they come into film, and it's a very small, they just have to make adjustments in size, and they just have to deal with, you know, the out of order stuff, which is no problem if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But going from film to theater can be a difficult transition. I remember Ashley Judd did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof on Broadway with Jason Patric, and Ned Beatty was playing Big Daddy. I know all this because Jason Patric was going to leave the show, and they asked me to audition for Brick. And so I did this big sophisticated audition. The point was not to talk about any of that, but Ned Beatty made fun of Jason Patric and Ashley, because they were film actors, and their stage energy had film actor written all over it, which means probably nobody could hear them past the first row.
Right.
And if you watch Jason Patric, he's a very good actor. His father was Jason Miller, who was a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, and he was the young priest in The Exorcist, a very good actor in his own right. But when you watch Jason act, he's very subdued and really low energy, really low key. And a part like Brick, if you know Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, the guy's very laconic, doesn't say a lot. He's drinking himself into oblivion in mourning over his best friend, whom he blames his wife for dying, and he doesn't say a lot, and so it could lend itself to a filmic energy taking down the piece. And Ashley's character has to be very big and explosive, which I'm sure she made adjustments for. But it's hard to make that transition from film to theater if you haven't been doing theater for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Apollo wants us to keep talking about stuff. So for £2 now, he's asking, because he asked a question earlier, the difference between screenwriting and novel short story writing. We talked about that for a bit, so now he's asking about screenwriting versus playwriting. And yes, those are both different as well. So
yes, playwriting from my perspective as an actor, Shakespeare wrote plays to be heard. And so a play can have a great deal of dialogue, even though we're now sophisticated enough in theater to have very interesting and cinematic-esque stage sets and stuff. The play is about the concepts, and the concepts are about the words, and that means they're much more dialogue intensive. So if you have to translate something from a play to a screenplay, you have to make it more visual and active and trim that dialogue.
Yeah, there's a lot more words in playwriting versus screenwriting is a lot more action and a lot less on the dialogue. Jennifer's back.
Did you guys miss me?
We did. Only for us to wrap this up and say goodbye.
You want me to make
say goodbye? My internet just crashed. I had to restart my server and everything.
doggone Colorado?
It's the first time this has happened. Maybe it's like all of us chatting. We haven't done this too much. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. It's been one of those days.
I feel you. Jax, do you want to make the announcements, or do you want me to make the announcements?
Sure, I'm happy to. So tomorrow at 4:00 p.m. UK time, the History of Astronomy course with Joseph Tabankin for ARC UK members of platinum level and above. And then again tomorrow at 5 p.m. UK time. I want to put in a request for you guys to do these later so that I don't have to get up at the butt crack of dawn to watch these things. Anyhow, tomorrow at 5:00 p.m. UK time, the ARC UK mock trial of anti-abortion protester for ARC UK members of platinum level and above. And if
Can I just say, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I wasn't going to go watch a bunch of Scottish Highland men throw telephone poles around tomorrow, I would definitely be there for the mock trial.
I would watch it as well. Rosie Ginsburg is going to be the villain. He's going to be the anti-abortion protester. God knows what he's done, but he will do it very well. He knows this. He knows the opposition side very well and plays very well to that. And
the ARC UK members are the jury as well, so it's an interactive thing. Is it just for the platinum level and above that they get to watch the mock trial? I'm asking to Daniel. Yes. It is. All right.
All right, folks. Well, I'm sorry I didn't get the chance to get in on the conversation and get into more detail about Severance, but I think you should watch it. It's only 9 episodes. It's only 9 hours of your life that you can't get back. But
it'll be 9 hours of life that has edified you and has brought you
edified you. I don't know about edifying, but it's certainly a good mystery. It's certainly entertaining and interesting. I'm not sure if I'm edified by it, to be honest with you. I like where the characters are going. I like how they're trying to merge and find consciousness and a sort of purity and goodness. But I'm not sure if I'm edified yet by everything. I'm certainly mystified by the way they're telling the story, and that's good.
Did you guys decide what we're doing next while I was off?
No, we did not decide.
Oh, okay. What are we doing next?
I know that Peaky Blinders was on our list. I don't know if you've seen that, Jennifer. Has Mark seen that?
Nope.
It's actually a crime, Mark, that you haven't seen it yet. I feel like you need to go into TV jail or something.
I'm a big Anya Taylor-Joy fan, so it is a crime that I haven't seen it because is Cillian Murphy in that as well?
Yep. He is it Killian or Cillian? I thought
who cares? Who cares? He's a great actor and you can see him in Oppenheimer, which I haven't seen yet, but I'll check it out. Maybe we should make that the next one. Peaky Blinders.
Season 1.
Okay, season 1 of Peaky Blinders, which is on, I can't remember what it's on. What is Peaky Blinders on? What, it's not Apple TV. Maybe it's Amazon.
It might be Netflix, but we can figure that out later. Everybody knows Peaky Blinders. They'll just look it up on their own.
Yeah.
And find it.
Yeah. Okay, they'll do that. All right. Awesome, folks.
All right, guys. It's been great talking to you, and I'll see you again when we do another episode on Peaky Blinders. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.